people are struggling and looking for answers. God has given you the solution and has called you to leadership. Now it's time to grow and prepare while learning how to use your gifts. Jamal is an experienced leader that uses his gifts to lead change. Now he's sharing what he's learned with you so you can fulfill your leadership assignment. Prepare to be ignited, to lead like a champion. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm so glad we have this opportunity to be together. I am Jamal Maxim, Igniter of Champion Leaders. My assignment is to ignite believers who are called to leadership in their ability to lead and operate in their supernatural gifting so that they can bring change and fulfill their assignment. So yes, this is ICL Live. Welcome to everyone who's in the VIP in Clubhouse. Thank you so much. Those of you who are listening live right now or listening to the replay, everybody who's watching on jamalmaxim.org or the Facebook pages or LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever platform you're watching on, because we're streaming on multiple platforms. I want to thank you for watching the live or the replay. Now, always remember in all of the spaces that you can always put in comments. You can put in comments in real time or in the replay. In whatever space you're on, remember to like and to share this video so that you can catch it, save this video while it's available, save this replay while it's available. Also, those of you who are on Clubhouse, feel free to share it in the hallway as well as the various platforms that you can share it. If you're watching me on YouTube, be sure to give me a thumbs up, give me a follow, and give me a subscribe so that you can get content from this channel as I continue to release it. And so today we're talking about keeping the fire. Now, I don't have like a PowerPoint or anything like that to put on your screen just because of the nature of how we want to talk today. And so a lot of times when God sends us into a place, whether it be through our business or when he puts us in leadership in a school or in a ministry per se, or ministry meaning worship fellowship, because everything we do as a kingdom focused leader is ministry, which is serving, and we're serving people and we're serving God simultaneously. And so whatever the leadership position is, a lot of times we're going to end up having to do two things. We're either going to make change or accelerate the progress. And those of you who are following me or have been following me for a while, you know I would talk about that there are similarities in accelerating progress and making change, but they are distinct and different, even though there are some commonalities, because there's one strategy you would use to make change. There's a different strategy you would use to accelerate progress. But whichever assignment you are in, because in some places you may need to make change. And other places you may need to accelerate progress. And it all determines on what God is saying about that place, but also the individual particulars of what's going on in that area and where they are in light of the vision. And so, but either way, you're going to have to keep the fire. You're going to have to keep the thing going. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Because if you or when you accelerate something or when you make change, you're going to have to make sure what you do is sustained and sustainable. You don't want to start something that cannot be sustained. I know a lot of people in leadership, they have so many ideas. They're full of ideas, full of vision. Let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. But the problem when they do all those different things, if they don't have a way of really sustaining it, it becomes a fad. That's one of the things that I found as a when I was leading schools as a principal, is that things became fads very quickly, almost from school year to school year. One year is like, everybody, this is the thing that's going to help move the school forward. Let's do it, rah, rah, rah. We get all excited. And then by the next school year, that initiative is gone and they're trying to do something else. And what the result of that is that that fad with initiatives what happened is people really didn't buy into any initiative, anything that was presented, anything that said, hey, this is the thing, this is the strategy. People looked at it kind of suspect. They didn't really buy into it wholeheartedly. They just looked at it as, okay, this is just another thing we're doing for this year, and next year is going to be different. And it's the same thing with leadership development. I was reading this book called Strengths Based Leadership, and they were in the book. They were telling a story about a leader who would go to different conferences, and his leadership style became like a fad. He would go to a conference and say, "Oh, this is the style. This is what we're doing," and he would want to push that. And then he would go to the next conference and then hear the next thing and then come back, "Oh, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to do this." And so that style became a fad. And what was said in the book is that person never really found out who he was as a leader because he just bounced from thing to thing. We also see this in the business world, especially with coaches and consultants. It's called shiny object syndrome. You go from one thing to the next. What looks good today, you're in it, you're all in, and then when the next shiny object comes, boom, you're in that. And so this style of fads will really damper and hinder transformation. You cannot bring transformation by bouncing from thing to thing or having a fad. It is different when you are called to make a shift, because sometimes while bringing transformation, you may have to shift. The goal doesn't shift, but the strategy for accomplishing the goal may shift. That's different. But being a fad is just going from thing to thing, like the Bible says, being tossed here and there by every wind of doctrine. And see, every wind of doctrine is not just, doctrine that's taught about faith. It's anything, any precept or anything that is taught, period. And so you don't want to make those kind of mistakes, because what you are doing, it has to be sustainable and built. So before, even as you are assessing, okay, is this the thing that I'm supposed to do in this place? Is this what God is telling me to do with my business or in this school or with this ministry? Then you need to look at, okay, God, is this a short-term assignment? Or if this is a long-term assignment, how do we sustain it? Because if it's short-term, meaning you're doing a specific thing for a specific period of time, that's different. But if it's long-term, now you have to think about who are the people that are needed that can keep this thing going the way it needs to go, that can champion and lead this thing. And so you have to look at how you maintain not only the thing you're doing, but how you maintain your passion and motivation and the motivation of the team. Because when you are walking out purposes and destiny, and you're bringing change and you're building with God, notice I say with God, not for God, because there's a difference. With God is something that's your assignment. For God is something that you just desire to do for Him. And that's why I encourage you as a leader that you always build with God and you lead with God and not just for God. Because your success as a leader will depend upon you doing it with God and accessing your gifts in the place you are assigned versus doing something for Him. And so you have to make sure that you stay encouraged, because when you are building and when you are walking out purposes and destiny, you will engage in what I call an endurance moment. Of course, the vision will be tested, your resolve will be tested, your leadership will be tested, and just to be real, your patience is going to be tested. And while your patience is being tested, and while the vision is being tested, your commitment to the vision is being tested, you will experience what's called an endurance moment. And in an endurance moment, it's a time where you can decree, you can pray, you can do all those things, but it seems like nothing is happening. And it's one of those moments where the way to victory is endurance, because things are happening in the background that you may not see yet, but will see later, and is a setup for you for greater success and a setup for God to get greater glory out of your life and and out of what you're doing. It's a moment where when the thing explodes, it's bigger than what you anticipated, greater than what you anticipated, and grander than what you anticipated. And so you have to stay encouraged as you are leading and not get weary in what you're doing and not get frustrated and ready to quit. Because endurance moments are moments where you really have to pull, dig deep, and be resolved so you don't quit and back up and say, well, maybe I'll just go do something else. Or maybe I just won't push this thing, or maybe I won't change. Maybe it is what it is kind of situation. When you know God did not send you to let things be, it is what it is. And so there are four things I want to say to you, or I'm going to share with you, so that you can keep the fire, so that you can help keep other people, help your team stay motivated. Because one of the things about adaptive leadership is the ability to help other people face challenges and overcome it. See, a lot of people think adaptive leadership is, I'm going to adjust my leadership style for the situation. No, that's situational leadership. Or I'm going to adapt how I lead based upon the needs and what's going on. No, that's not necessarily it. When you look at the research, adaptive leadership is helping people be able to face and overcome the challenges they're facing. And so it's basically helping them understand that they're in an endurance moment and how to exercise patience. But in order to do that, you have to recognize that you're in an endurance moment, or that the place you're leading is in an endurance moment, and you have to exercise patience so that you can help them recognize it and exercise patience. And so the key is this: before I even go to these 4 points, you have to be able to discern that you're in an endurance moment. You have to know the difference between an endurance moment, a demonic attack, and some other stuff. Because some stuff is the enemy bringing opposition against you from bringing change. We see in Nehemiah, there was opposition against him building the wall. We see in the book of Ezra, there was opposition against Zerubbabel rebuilding the temple. And so anything you build for God, you're going to face opposition, regardless of the name that's on the entity. Whether it's a school, it's going to be opposition because people are trying to program children to believe a certain thing and embrace a certain thing. If it's a worship fellowship, it's going to be opposition to the growth and expansion and transformation of the place that fellowship is in, but also the nations, because I believe fellowships are called to be global. And so, or if you're leading your business, there's going to be opposition to you growing your business and establishing yourself as a CEO, not just in the community, but globally. And so you're going to face opposition either way. And so how you deal with opposition is different than how you deal with an endurance moment. It's a different response. Opposition comes from the enemy, and you have to deal with the spiritual opposition as well as get strategy to deal with the people who are being used as catalysts of opposition. When it's an endurance moment, it's not the enemy, it's God. And so an endurance moment is God allowing you to be in a particular process in order for the greater glory to happen. And you can decree all day, but the hand of God is the hand of God, and the timing of God is the timing of God. In Habakkuk, that's why it says, write the vision and make it plain. It says, though it tarry, wait for it, it shall surely come. And so you have to recognize endurance moments are moments of the waiting while it's coming. And so there's simultaneous things happening. There's a waiting on your part because you're exercising patience, but there's the coming of the vision simultaneously. And so that's what happens in an endurance moment. And you need to make sure during that time you keep the fire, that you stay excited, you stay motivated, you stay passionate about the vision, and you continue to do all the things you are supposed to do while expecting results. And see, waiting and being patient does not mean that you don't do a thing, but what it means is that you continue to do the thing while you are expecting the results for what you are doing. And so I'm gonna keep going, but I do see that my my video was frozen a little bit, and so I may have to restream this thing, but hopefully you can still hear me even though you might not see me. And so here, that's the thing you want to think about in an endurance moment. So I'm going to give you these 4 keys that's going to help you keep the fire as you endure, as you walk out patience, because we are have been told to follow those who through faith and patience inherit the promise. And so it's not just faith, it is the patience that causes us to inherit the promise. There we go. I'm back on camera now. I apologize. My software had a freeze, and I see it's trying to freeze again, but that's okay. The devil is a liar. And so here are the 4 things that I'm going to give you in relation to an endurance moment. And so here they are. So these 4 keys for endurance moment is this. Number 1, you must speak to yourself about the situation, because a lot of times we will decree a thing over the situation, which we should do. We will speak a word over the situation, which we should do. But we must remember to speak to ourselves about how we will respond in an endurance moment. A lot of times we will do certain things because we've been taught to do a thing, but we're still trying to battle our emotions and how we feel about what we're talking about the situation. And so you have to make sure that you speak to yourself and not just the situation alone. When you speak to yourself, you are commanding your body, your emotions, and your mind to be in alignment and to respond a certain way. Because when you don't speak to yourself, you speak to the situation with what I call declaration, not affirmation. What happens is you're shifting things outside of you, but never shifting you internally, and then you will still deal with the internal battle of trying to stay in a place of faith and excitement and hope, because during endurance moments, the spirit of heaviness will try to come upon you and push you to a place of depression. And so you have to make sure you speak to yourself while you are speaking to things. Number 2 is you have to be self-aware of your emotions. When you start to feel a thing, or when an emotion tries to come upon you, you have to be aware enough to recognize it, that something is trying to make you feel a certain way, and that feeling is attempting to get you out of alignment with the posture you should have. And so you have to recognize when those emotions are coming and what the assignment of those emotions are, so that you can address them. And then the third thing is, here's the 3rd key. Now that you are aware of your emotions, now that you are speaking to yourself in those emotions, the 3rd thing is you need to remember some of the emotions well, let me say it this way. Your emotions are a product of your thought life. And so the emotions you feel are to enhance life. That's why we were given emotions. However, they are a product of our thought life. So what you think, what you dwell on, will basically impact what you feel. So you can shift your emotions when you shift your thoughts. And so the fact that you recognize these emotions are trying to come upon me, I'm aware now. Now I remember my emotions are a product of my thoughts. So now at least you have to shift what you're thinking about a thing. Now, Dr. Caroline Leaf would tell you that you have approximately 3 to 5 seconds to address a thought that comes to you before it becomes a part of your brain and begins to grow what's called a dendrite. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And so when that things come, which is why you have to be aware, and you have to recognize the emotions are a product of your thoughts. So when the thought comes, you have to address that thought immediately, so it doesn't become a part of you and then get conveyed in your emotions, and then eventually will impact your behavior and get you out of alignment and get you in a place of discouragement versus staying encouraged. And so now that you recognize the emotions are a product of your thoughts, here's number 4. You have to remember that every thought that enters your head did not originate from you. So you know these thoughts are coming, and you have to be intentional to reject the thoughts that are not from you, or that are not in alignment with what God has said about you, the place you're leading, and your leadership assignment. When those thoughts come, you have to speak to them. You can't outthink a thought. You can't battle a thought with another thought, even though it seems like that will be the way to do it. But I have found that the best way to kill a negative thought that's trying to come to my brain is to speak a word. And what I do is I out loud reject that thought that's coming to my brain. And so, because I recognize that thoughts are sent to me and not always curated by me. And because of that, I can speak to the thoughts that are sent to me and allow my mind to stay in a place of alignment with my assignment. That's why the Bible tells us to think on certain things and to keep our minds stayed on Jesus. So in your leadership assignment, you need to stay focused on the assignment, but more than that, stay focused on the God who has given you the assignment. Because when you do that, you can keep your fire and you can stay encouraged as you are dealing with endurance moments, and as you are dealing with a time where you have to be patient, because you're dealing with what's called a patience test. Now, Frank Damazio, in his book, The Making of a Leader, talks about the patience test. And so you're going to have to deal with having to exercise patience during this endurance moment when that patience is tested. Because trust me, anything that you are doing for God is going to be tested. It's going to be not by God, but by life and by the enemy. And here's one other thing as I end the video. And those of you who are watching the video, I apologize. I may have to restream this. The software that controls my camera, it keeps freezing and acting up. So right now you just hear the voice and you see the still picture. And so here's the thing. Just the other day, I received, because I'm on the mailing list for Dr. Bill Winston out of Chicago. If you don't know him, you need to get to know him. And one of the things he said in his letter that he sent is titled, "Greatness is Your Portion." Now, for those of you who've been following me, I've been talking about this year being the year of greatness and our name being made great. And one of the things he said, and he made a thing that you can put up, in your space. It says no way to greatness except through the fire. And so you have to recognize, in this time of greatness, the way to greatness is having to pass through fire, having to pass through challenges, having to deal with endurance moments. And as you are passing through those things, that is the only path to greatness. You have to keep, and I'm using fire in a different context, but you have to keep your fire, your passion, because that is the test. Where if you're going to stay in alignment with your assignment, if you're going to continue to do what you know you're supposed to do, even if it seems like you're the only one. Because I know what it is, and I'm speaking specifically to some school leaders. You may feel like you're the only one in the building who seems like you're on this page, and everybody else seems to be going with the status quo. But know this: you're not the only one in education, even though you might be the only one in your building. But just because you're the only one doesn't mean it can't happen and you can't make the change. You may be doing your business and you might be thinking, I'm the only one in this niche. But trust me, there are other people around in that niche. And if it seems like you're the only one, that's okay. Because maybe you're the one who's going to set the stage and clear the path for other people to do something similar. And so don't allow this feeling of being the only one. That's what Elijah felt after the prophets of Baal. And God told him there were 5,000 who had not bowed their knee. But Elijah just didn't know who they were or where they were. So I want you to stay encouraged today in your leadership. I want you to stay encouraged in your leadership assignment. And I want you to keep your fire and recognize as you do what God is telling you to do in the place you are called to lead, you will see success. even though you might be in an endurance moment, just follow the 4 keys that I shared with you, and you will be able to walk through this thing and experience the greatness that has been promised to you, which will result in the transformation that you have been called to make. All right, so that's it as far as the video portion. Thank you all so much for listening, as well as watching the part that you could watch. And so I want you to remember, it is my declaration over you that you be successful and you lead like a champion. Now, if you want to have access to other teachings like this, you have to come be a part of the community. The ICL community is in Champion University, and Champion University is not a program, is not a bunch of courses, is not any of that. It is community. And when you get into the community, you have access to my vault. When you have access to teachings that I teach, I have a teaching that I'm currently editing that I taught on healing. There's also a challenge that I did, the replay of a challenge that I did that's not available anywhere else, about igniting change, specifically in schools. There are other teachings about like partnering with the angelic and the necessity of the supernatural. So many things that I've taught in various places, in schools and workshops and churches. All of those things are curated and housed in Champion University. So when you come and be a part of this community, you can access whatever you need in order to fulfill your assignment. So I encourage you to become a member today. Join the community. You can go to jamalmaxim.org/CU, join the community, get access to the vault, and then get access to not only previous teachings that were taught live, but then you get access to a monthly teaching from me that will ignite you in your leadership, but also in your ability to operate in your spiritual gifting, because your gifts were given to you in order to help you fulfill your leadership assignment. God didn't say, I'm gonna give you these gifts and then I'm gonna put you in leadership over here and think of them as two separate things. Everything you need and everything you will accomplish, God placed gifts in you to make sure you accomplish it and are successful. So get developed in that area and get activated and ignited. All right, so that's it for all of you watching. Thank you so much, and I apologize again for my software that controls my camera acting up, but you still heard the voice and we still kept it moving. So I want you to remember to be successful and lead like a champion. Bye-bye.